to continue with my interesting and unique Seiko Landmaster series, this time with the South Pole. Much like the Sagarmatha in Part 1, the name on the dial really gives things away, as this was designed for another Japanese adventurer, this time Mitsuru Oba, in his attempt to cross Antarctica by foot. Well, foot/skiing/parasailing, to be specific. This was done from 98 to 99, and he was mostly successful in that he managed to cover over 2,000 miles, but he had to stop and he couldn't cover the last 120 miles because of very dangerous weather. Interestingly enough, Oba had a Landmaster made for him before this, in 97, the so-called transpolar model. As you can see here, it's a basic Landmaster with a different dial design. Functionally, it's exactly the same, but it has a really neat dial. Now, this one, released in 1999, is the polar opposite of that. This is different in almost every single way. So, at rehash, the Sagarmatha body was made out of Bright's titanium and the bezel of Cermet, ceramic metal hybrid. This time, all of the silver is Cermet. The black bezel and the mid-links are zirconia ceramic. Now, I imagine many of you are probably familiar with the idea of ceramic watches. The Chanel J12 in the early 2000s, and now just about every mainstream manufacturer has some version or the other. In those cases, the actual body is made out of ceramic, whereas this case, the body is made of Cermet. And as you've probably seen, every once in a while, one of these watches is dropped and it breaks, it fractures. And in my years of looking at Yahoo Japan, occasionally I'd find one that was cracked on the lugs. So realistically, I don't think this is the most ideal mainstream watch case material, but it certainly is very unique and it has some interesting properties. And the funny thing is, all the Swiss ceramic watch manufacturers sort of like to make it seem as if they were all doing cutting-edge things when Seiko actually was doing it before anyone else, except this was a limited edition Japan domestic watch. So outside of that and a few collectors outside of Japan, no one ever really knew anything about it. So there's that. And as far as what you think about ceramic watches, that is ultimately up to you if you're comfortable with the risks of it being dropped and fracturing. It's not for everyone, but you have to make that decision yourself. But anyway, sorry for the digression. So we have Cermet and ceramic, or zirconia ceramic. That's the first part of the technology. The idea in general, though, with the ceramics and Cermet was that it was supposed to be both durable and it was supposed to be soft on the skin when dealing with extremely cold climates. Next, we have technological changes. If you look here, you'll notice that the compass on the bezel is backwards. North is down, this would be south, east, and west. Also, on the chapter ring, the 24-hour scale goes backwards. And the idea behind it was that since you would be in the South Pole, a compass wouldn't be very effective. So you need to have another way of navigating. And as I'll pull up here are instructions that Seiko actually has showing how to use the GMT hand and the compass to help find north and navigate from there. To be honest, outside of Mitsuru Oba, I don't think anyone else has had any need for this, but it's still a very interesting technology. Well, I guess technology isn't really the right word. Functional design, let's go with. And the other part of it, since the 24-hour scale goes backwards, This special 5M47 kinetic movement has a GMT hand that goes counterclockwise, whereas everything else runs the normal way. And that, again, was to allow him to be able to navigate in extreme weather in the South Pole. And obviously, the design in the center of the dial is Antarctica. And a number of people have crossed it to varying degrees of success, but it's still an extremely, obviously, deadly and absolutely crazy attempt to make. And that's what I guess makes this watch so interesting. It's, especially for the time, uses cutting-edge, unique materials, but they were all designed in service of a function. Even, again, it was a function of one single person. It's still all built to serve, to have some utility. Because if you look at other ceramic watches, it's just a gimmick, nothing more, nothing less. But in this case, I do like the way function was integrated into the movement and the bezel and the GMT hand. This, again, was released in '99. It was a limited edition of, I believe, 700. See, as you can see, it says just ceramics on the back, nothing else. Though, again, it's a mixture of cermet and ceramics. As far as spare parts, I'm not aware of any, though I've never contacted Seiko Japan to ask, but that is ultimately the risk you take when you own something that does have somewhat of a habit of being brittle. I'm not bothered by it, but if you happen to be interested in something like this, that is something to factor in. It's a really unique watch. It's fun to wear, and despite it being mostly black, it has so much detail, and again, the history on top of it, and the functionality on top of it, limited though it may be, is something I find extremely interesting, and it I think makes watch collecting a lot of fun, because it's just something you don't see every day. And of course, watch collecting in even the late 90s was something extremely different than what it is now, so I guess you do have to factor that in. But that's really all I have to say on this one, part 2 of Unique and Interesting Landmasters. And that's about it. And as usual, thanks for watching.